It's graduation weekend all across the country, and at one of America's most prestigious military academies, West Point, Donald Trump set the bar for the graduating class. And, well, there's footage of that all over the internet. It's insane. I'm going to spare you that. Instead, I want to tell you why that bar that he set and his whiplash policies will likely require the United States Corps of Cadets to learn the limbo. In fact, many Academy midshipmen are going underground in response to Trump's terrible policies, according to our breaking story from the Washington Post. Trump has created a crisis of conscience wherever he goes, and in the case of our story today, he's driven wedges into the foundation of the academy that sits singularly under the Pentagon's control. Now, as you're about to learn from the Washington Post earlier today, many of these cadets, plebes, yearlings, cows, or firsties alike are facing a serious crisis of conscience, and we might painfully remind you, it wasn't always this way.
Class, free?
And when a typhoon hits the Philippines, or schoolgirls are kidnapped in Nigeria, or masked men occupy a building in Ukraine, it is America that the world looks to for help. We will continue to coordinate with our friends and allies in Europe and the Arab world to push for a political resolution of this crisis and to make sure that those countries, and not just the United States, are contributing their fair share to support the Syrian people. You see, American influence is always stronger when we lead by example. We can't exempt ourselves from the rules that apply to everybody else. We can't call on others to make commitments to combat climate change if a whole lot of our political leaders deny that it's taken place. It will be your generation's task to respond to this new world.
That was Then, This Is Now. Quick caption contest. We didn't sign up for this? I think that's funny. Hey, as Trump babbled about trophy wives and drag shows to the noble cadets at West Point, the Washington Post published this earlier today. Trump addresses West Point upended by his changes. When President Donald Trump last addressed the graduating class of the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, protests inspired by the police killing of George Floyd swept the country, forcing a reckoning on college campuses that extended to the storied institution. Then, school officials directed cadets to spend an academic year exploring how to unearth and confront racism, sexism, and other biases that persist at this academy and that undermine American society. Now, 5 years later, the academy has banished talk of systematic inequality, abolished student affinity clubs for women and minorities, and instructed faculty to purge terms such as feminist and systematic racism from syllabi, all at the order of their commander-in-chief. Returning to address graduates on Saturday, he arrived at a different West Point, one his administration has swiftly reshaped to reflect his worldview. You are the first West Point graduates of the golden age of America, Trump said, adding later, we've turned it around. Trump, who gave the speech wearing a hat emblazoned with his campaign slogan, Make America Great Again, intertwined his political ideology with words about the military's success. He said that as president, he had rebuilt the military better than ever before and rid it of social experiments like the teaching of critical race theory and efforts to support transgender soldiers, and he took credit for a rise in military recruitment. Trump also made a point to criticize his predecessor Joe Biden and what he cast as liberal ideas, claiming that politicians subjected the armed forces to all manner of social projects and declaring, "We will not have men playing women's sports." It's a feeling of real whiplash, said Graham Parsons, a former West Point professor who resigned from America's oldest service academy after publicly criticizing the impact of Trump's policies. We used to raise the possibility that in the military and beyond, there are still real structural problems with racism and sexism. That would not fly now. Since reclaiming the White House, Trump has set his sights on institutions of higher education as keys to unraveling the diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives that he says have corrupted American culture. In some instances, he has experienced challenges from the courts or universities as they dispute the limits of his power. But at West Point, an institution run by the Pentagon, the president can, for the most part, have his way. Several professors and military observers said the changes implemented at the academy in response to Trump's executive orders have thrust the historically nonpartisan institution into the partisan fray. Across military academies, some students and faculty have subtly resisted the Trump administration's decrees, hoping to maintain an academic culture that tolerates disparate political views and fosters racial diversity. At the U.S. Naval Academy, some midshipmen have started using non-government email addresses to run underground versions of the same affinity clubs disbanded by their administration. Others have used the new email addresses to communicate their concerns about banned books or shuttered clubs to professors, according to 3 faculty members interviewed by the Washington Post. Wow, how Hegsethyan. The faculty spoke on condition, well, this is why, of anonymity to avoid professional retribution. Military officers who use contemptuous words against the president and other federal officials can be court-martialed according to the Military Code of Conduct. At West Point, some faculty have tweaked language in their syllabi to comply while continuing to teach the same topics, said Parsons. Parsons, who taught philosophy and military ethics at the academy, wrote in a New York Times opinion piece that Trump had so changed West Point that Parsons was ashamed to be associated with the academy. Once a school that strove to give cadets the broad-based, critical-minded, nonpartisan education they need for careers as Army officers, West Point was suddenly eliminating courses, modifying syllabuses, and censoring arguments to comport with the ideological tastes of the Trump administration. After it was published, the school launched an investigation into allegations of misconduct, he said. Parsons said he resigned before he was fired. His last day was Friday, a day before Trump was set to address his former students. Spokespeople for the U.S. Military Academy and the U.S. Naval Academy did not return requests for comment Friday. A Naval Academy professor who spoke on the condition of anonymity for fear of retribution, said he has told his students, there is a point where compliance turns into complicity. That professor said he has already seen academic consequences related to Trump's rhetoric and directives. Students once felt free to debate affirmative action, abortion, and gun control. They argued about whether the country should lean more interventionist or more isolationist, the professor said. Then Trump issued the executive order, which was soon followed by Hegseth's memo that abolished DEI offices and any vestiges of such offices, banned instruction on race or gender, and told professors to teach that America and its founding documents remain the most powerful force for good in human history. Faculty have since been told to run their research through an AI screening tool to determine whether they are compliant with the new guidelines, documents show. The device then flags words including barrier, black, allyship, cultural differences in the Gulf of Mexico that do not comply with Trump's executive order, the provost told faculty in a newsletter reviewed by the Post. We at the Naval Academy are here to prepare young officers to command. They need to know what we have learned from our study of politics and history and literature and languages, the professor said. We are failing them, and we are failing in our jobs if we suppress some things we know are true and we parrot other things we know are false. The tension has come up in class and in individual exchanges with cadets. The professor said he has counseled students who feel torn about deployment, caught between their belief in service to the country and their worries about the president who would give their orders. He advised them to serve until they face an order they believe to be illegal. If that point comes, he told them, reject it rather than compromise yourself. Happy Memorial Day, though it kind of feels like we're going through the motions. But since it's Memorial Day, let's remember a few things. My dad. He carried this in World War II, 26th Yankee Division. It provided light in the dark of war and fear. It lit his way. Or the parades of the past, the ones that were honest and true, not bought and paid for. And we can remember our old friend Kermit the Frog, who turned 70 years old this week. Kermit, anything you'd like to add for the grads?
Wow! What a thrill it is to be back here at the University of Maryland and celebrate the class of 2025!